So, if the cascading taxation, if that was to be eliminated, how would the state make up the shortfall?
Well, that's the conversation that's taking place in Santa Fe right now is rooted in a proposal that came out a couple years ago from Senator Scher and Representative Taylor, both Republicans from the Farmington area. And to their credit, that their thesis was, we have a problem. This may not be the solution, but we got to do something because what we have is broken. And I agree with that. And the $1 million question, Senator Scher, who initiated the proposal, his idea was, seeing this, you see a lot of blame and you see a growth over the years, especially the last decade, in expanded exemptions and deductions. That's not always bad. It depends what you're trying to do, what you're trying to be when you grow up. But his thesis was, we've had this trend, let's just reverse it. Let's eliminate all the exemptions and deductions and use this tax to replace not just the existing gross receipts tax, but the personal income tax, the corporate income tax, motor vehicle excise tax, and I think a couple of other tax programs. That's an ambitious goal. Mm-hmm. My initial reaction was that's probably not going to work because the base isn't going to be big enough. A true gross receipts tax, this cascading effect that we call pyramiding, true gross receipts tax is pyramid like crazy because they are effectively as billed. Our tax is not a gross receipts tax. It has the features of a retail sales tax and the features of a gross receipts tax, kind of a hybrid, worst of both worlds, I think, these days. But a true gross receipts tax can function and not be distortive. That's the term for causing the problems that and inefficiencies. Doing cartwheels around your tax structure doesn't create a competitive environment. If you have to do that, it just sucks more energy right out of your business. The gross receipts tax that, say, Washington has is typically under 1%. So to not be distortive, gross receipts taxes, they can have a very broad base, but they have to have a very low rate, or they start really causing these problems. If you're vertically integrated, you're better off. But why force vertical integration where it's not otherwise demanded by the market conditions or the business conditions? So step one in analyzing whether that proposal can even work, outside of some of the technical drafting issues, because there was a bill drafted, was how big is that base? How much money would it raise? And accordingly, what kind of rate would be necessary to support the revenue needs that we currently have? And I think the senator was saying 3%, 2 for the state, 1 for the locals. Because you also can't forget another complicating factor is the gross receipts tax funds our local governments, cities and counties. And so they're all wedded to this too. We can't, whatever we do has to kind of work for everybody if we do anything at all. So I would suggest that if it was a 3% rate, that's too high. That's not going to work. There's other states that we can look to that have gross receipts taxes. And they function, but they typically replace not their sales tax. Every state that has something that looks like a gross receipts tax also has a sales tax. They tend to replace their business activity taxes. It replaces the corporate income tax or the personal income tax or both. But in no case is it really robust enough, is the base big enough and the rate low enough to replace all of their tax programs. So I think if we were to go in the direction of the Scher-Taylor proposal, it would have to be less ambitious. We probably wouldn't end up replacing personal income tax, sales tax, corporate income tax. I think we would end up replacing either the corporate income tax and having a broader business activity tax, which would be more fair, but you'd also step on the toes of some local businesses and they wouldn't like it, so it's probably politically unsellable.
When you get rid of the exemptions and everybody's paying a little bit of their fair share, you really think there'd be that much pushback from business?
Yes, I do. I think it would present any non-corporate entity with a tax bill that they don't currently pay. And unless they saw a highly visible offset somewhere else, they would say this isn't good for us.